Today, we're going to talk about learning a new language, but not one you speak. It's one you think with. It's a framework, really, for taking apart the toughest problems you'll ever face in your work, in a business, maybe even in your own life. And it all starts with a feeling I think we've all had. So just for a second, think back to the last time you were up against a really, truly hard problem. What did that actually feel like? We all have this kind of gut instinct about what makes a problem feel messy or overwhelming or just impossible. And usually that feeling boils down to one of three things, right? Either you have way too many choices, just an ocean of possibilities, or the path forward seems really, really clear, or it feels completely locked down, like there's just no way out. Now, what's so cool is that these feelings aren't just feelings. They map directly onto a formal and much more powerful way of thinking about problems. And that is the language of optimization. Now, don't let the words scare you off. This isn't about to become a math lecture. Think of it as a toolkit for thinkers. It gives you a really precise vocabulary to diagnose a problem, instead of just taking a wild guess at a solution. And to see how it works, we're going to apply it to a classic real-world challenge. Let's invent a new business. We're going to take this fuzzy, messy, creative process and look at it like it's an optimization problem. And you're going to see how this new language can bring some serious clarity to the chaos. So, how do you actually go from a vague what-if idea to a business model that actually works? Well, you start by defining the problem correctly, using our new vocabulary. And we have to start with the most fundamental piece of the puzzle. First, you absolutely need an objective. This is the one thing, the one single metric you are trying to push up or push down more than anything else. Now, for a startup, you might think, oh, that's easy, revenue or growth. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Picking the wrong objective, especially early on, is one of the fastest ways to fail. And this is just a perfect example of the trap. A young company that hasn't found product market fit yet, if it focuses on revenue, it's optimizing the wrong thing. Revenue at that stage is what we'd call a proxy objective. Yeah, you can measure it, but it's not actually what you want. What you really want is a signal, any signal that you've built something people desperately need. Chasing dollars too early can completely smother that search. Okay, next up, constraints. These are the rules of the game. Some are obvious, they're hard constraints, like how much money you have in the bank. Others are soft, like trying to get customers to change their habits. But the ones that are truly dangerous, they're the hidden ones. The ones you don't see coming. Things like trust, or regulatory headaches, or just plain old human inertia. These are the invisible walls that can completely sink a brilliant idea. So let's see how this language helps us tell the difference between a fuzzy idea and a real business. On one hand, you've got an under-identified model. It has way too many degrees of freedom. This is that we could sell to anyone phase. On the other hand, you have a well-posed model. It's tight, it's constrained, it knows its customer, it knows their pain point, and because of that, it gets a fast, clear signal about what's working. Here's the key takeaway. Successful founders are ruthless about reducing their degrees of freedom until the problem is actually solvable. But here's a mystery we've all seen play out. What about those businesses that seem like they're doing great? You know, they have users, they've got engagement, they have all this traction, but they just never become real, viable companies. This isn't just bad luck, you know? It actually has a name and a shape on our problem landscape. It's called a saddle point, and it is a point of incredibly unstable equilibrium. The best way to picture it is to think of an actual horse's saddle. If you move forward or backward along the horse's spine, you go up. That feels like progress. But if you lean just a little bit to the left or right, you slide right off and fall to the ground. For a business, this is when one metric, like user growth, is going up, but another critical one, like your unit economics, is quietly collapsing underneath you. It is the perfect geometry of false traction. This table here really helps visualize what's going on. That strict minimum, that's the sweet spot. It's like a deep, stable valley. It's a robust business model where any small nudge just brings you back to a strong center. The flat minimum is like a wide-open plain. You're in a decent spot, but there's no obvious way to improve. But that saddle point, it's so treacherous because it isn't stable. It fools you. It makes you think you're close to a solution when you're actually balanced on a knife's edge. Knowing which of these landscapes you're on, that's a huge part of leadership. And this idea, this ability to read the landscape, it leads to a really powerful metaphor for leadership and strategy. It draws a sharp line between running the business day to day and actually setting its long-term direction. And it frames them as two totally different optimization strategies. And here it is. Executives follow gradients. CEOs add energy. Just let that sink in for a second. It's such a simple but powerful way to think about two fundamentally different jobs. Let's break down exactly what that means. So executives descend. What that means is they follow the local slope. They make the current system better, more efficient. They're exploiting the known landscape to improve margins, assuming the basic model is correct. That's local optimization. CEOs, though, they shake the system. Their job is to inject non-local energy, to literally reshape the landscape by changing the constraints or maybe even the entire objective. They're the ones who have to ask, are we even climbing the right mountain? And this, really, is the core insight about what makes a great leader. The hardest part of the job isn't just making decisions, it's choosing the right mode for the whole company. It's knowing when it's time to dig in and optimize what you have, and when it's time to blow things up and start searching for a new hill to climb. This is such a profound way to reframe things. You know, we love to praise leaders for being decisive, but what is decisiveness? It's just speed. And speed is useless or even dangerous if you're decisively marching off a cliff. The real wisdom is being able to diagnose the system and know, deep in your bones, whether it needs the calm of stability or the chaos of new energy. So how do you know? How do you make that call? Well, you have to read the signals. If improvements are pretty predictable and your key metrics respond smoothly when you make changes, your system probably needs stability. It's time to exploit the value you're creating. But if all your little local wins don't seem to change the big picture, or if your charts look good but reality just feels stuck, that's a huge sign you might be on a saddle point. The system needs a jolt of energy to explore and reframe the entire problem. So, when you put all of this together, what does it all mean? Well, this language of optimization, it gives us a whole new philosophy for how to solve hard problems. It shifts our focus away from just frantically searching for answers. And this right here is the whole point. The goal isn't just about finding the answer. It's about shaping the question. It's about defining your objective and understanding your constraints so deeply, so precisely, that a great answer becomes not just possible, but almost inevitable. That is the real language of problem solving. So I guess the question I'll leave you with is this. What question in your life are you trying to reshape?